leading the fight tonight. And I do believe that we may have Mayor Mark Clark joining us via Zoom here. And Jules, you can just let me know when he gets in there. He can say hello. But we may as well get started with our meeting. We do have the first item on the list, and the only item on the list is the 2024 compensation study report and the 2025 budget recommendations. And we will let staff have the floor now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Spear and rest of council. I'm Tammy Thompson, Human Resources and Risk Management Director, and I'll be presenting the 2024 compensation study and turn it over to Jackie a little bit for the 2025 budget recommendations. Tonight, just an overview. We're going to have share a little bit of the project methodology, compensation analysis, the 2025 budget impact, share a little bit of council pay comparison with you, and then share our recommendations. First of all, for the objectives, we wanted, for our project methodology, we wanted to make sure we had a transparent process. We did this because it's just good governance, promotes accountability, and so in years past, we didn't have such a transparent process, and our books are open. We have showed them to staff, and we're going to share them with you tonight. We also wanted to evaluate total rewards. The diagram here shows the total compensation package. It's 3 buckets that we look at each year. Direct earnings, that's wages, salaries, it's the money aspect of total comp. Then we have the indirect, those are the things that add value for our workforce, such as benefits, retirement, those things. And then the non-financial bucket that is very important. That's where our EDGE core values fall in, the pride of working for the City of Evans and working for public service. So that we do evaluate every year our total reward package. We also want to maintain market competitiveness. The City Council, as you recall, we were directed to bring staff to 100% of market last year. It doesn't seem like that long ago, but we are talking about last year with discretion, of course, and so we don't want to fall behind. We want to maintain that market competitiveness as much as we can. And then we also evaluate our organizational structure strategy. We're kind of rebuilding here at the City of Evans, and I look at it as continuous improvement. We want to evaluate where we are, where we need to be, and where we want to go. So we're not only looking at 2025, but we're looking at 2030, 2035, where we want to go for our organizational structure. Part of that transparency, first of all, the Compensation Study Committee, comprised of myself, Jackie Trout, Elsa Caro, she's our finance manager, Julie Timkowicz, she's our human resources manager, and of course Cody Sims. That made up your committee, same as last year. The labor market, we participate in several surveys throughout the year, namely Employers Council and Colorado Municipal League. Also direct inquiry. We have established a labor market, and so we share data with them, and we ask for theirs in return in the spirit of reciprocity. And then we took all of our findings and we shared them with our executive team. And corporately, we met during one of our meetings and we did a high overview. And then I met with each of our executives and talked about their respective departments and shared the good news about the compensation study this year. And then tonight we're sharing with you. We want everyone to be familiar with our process and to understand the care that was taken with these findings and our recommendation. And then you can see there in the graphic the benefits that we all have because we have a transparency in our pay process, and it's just trust. Again, I'll repeat myself, but if you understand the process, you're more likely to trust the process and accept the results. And so that's what we're doing tonight. Equity. I had the privilege of working with both Ty Hamer and Ty Boreski this year, talking with their about their departments, and I welcomed that perspective because they're new to us, and so they were able to say, well, you know, in my former employer, this and this and this, and so it really shows us that we're equitable, because we're, you know, there was nothing alarming when I was sharing the data with them, and they were like, this job, and they understand this job and the pay that it was making at their former employer. The other, I'm just going down that list on the graphic there, the stronger culture, company culture, and of course this just really exemplifies our EDGE values of we have to empower our workforce to deliver and grow and engage our community, and we do that through a transparent pay process. Compliance, we can't get away from compliance with pay. We have to comply with minimum wage, equal pay, equal work. Colorado just passed a new exemption law of the wage that has to, if you're an exempt employee, the wage you have to make. We have to make sure that we comply with that, and our pay plan does. And then I'm going to just couple the last two with recruitment and retention. We've adopted a structured pay plan for all of our pay plans, and that kind of takes the guesswork out when we're hiring someone. And also for long-range planning, we know what our workforce is going to make, or at least the minimum that they're going to make, the base pay. And so those are the benefits of a transparent pay plan and process. All right, I want to move along to total rewards, and this is going to be my favorite slide to share with you tonight. And just everything in red there, that is what we offer our workforce. It's just crazy to think about the amazing total reward package that we offer staff. And you know, this was even long before I started working here. These things were put into place, and then we've added a few, of course, as policies have changed. And one thing that I want to draw your attention to, and that's the blue, the big blue there on my left, the Exceptional Evans. That's a new program that the city adopted. It's called Exceptionally Evans Employee Recognition Program, and I believe we've shared that with you before, but I have two that I wanted to share with you that have come in. We launched this program in March of this year, and two very amazing recognitions came in. And both this one's from the external, from a community member. And actually, Ty, you submitted this to Efren and to Cody, and then it made it to our committee. And I'm just going to read it verbatim. It says, and this is Ty speaking, Ty Hamer. I was just down at Riverside Ball Fields checking out the baseball tournament. Walking around, and I noticed a questionable third strike call at home plate. As one of the coaches was arguing with an umpire, an older gentleman struck up a conversation with me. He was there watching his grandson play baseball. I mentioned all the great memories I had of watching my son as well. He asked what team I was supporting. I told him I was the director of Parks and Recreation for the city of Evans and was just checking things out. He went on to tell me that he had seen different baseball facilities all up and down the Front Range, and ours is by far the best. He went as far to mention we're number one for infields, number one for outfields, as well as conditions of the restrooms. Even thanked me for having running water. This is a testament to the hard work and dedication of our parks team, and I wanted to thank you and your team for all you have been doing this summer. The ball fields look great. So Gerardo Gutierrez and Robert Wheeler, they take care of our athletic fields, and they received the Exceptionally Evans Award for last month. And then they received this token, a wooden nickel, and it has the city logo, and then it has our EDGE logo on the back. And then they can redeem them at our Exceptionally Evans EDGE store for swag. And they can get a t-shirt or a sweatshirt or something like that. And then the second one that I wanted to share with you is, was nominated from Brian Stone, our Economic Development Director. And he writes, Employee Recognition Committee, please accept my nomination for GIS Administrator Jennifer Novi for the Exceptionally Evans GEM Award. GEM stands for Going the Extra Mile. Prior to attending the ICSC Retail Conference to promote Evans as a community of choice for new development, I faced a challenge in presenting current useful information about Evans and the available parcels for development. I reached out to Jennifer for assistance in building a GIS platform to use at the conference. Without hesitation, Jennifer met me to discuss my vision for the platform. Despite being at her own training the week before and having plenty of her own work to manage, she immediately began working on this project. Jennifer consistently updated me on her progress and incorporated my suggestions, even when I made frequent unannounced visits to her office for additional changes. Her dedication and flexibility, despite her busy schedule, resulted in a platform that effectively showcased Evans to potential businesses for development. Jennifer's engagement and delivery not only helped me at the conference, but also provided a tool that will be invaluable for the Economic Development Department's outreach efforts. As City Manager Cody Sims says, economic development needs to be a priority for everyone in the city. Jennifer's efforts demonstrated her commitment to this priority and exemplified the values of the city of Evans.
Good.
Yeah. So I wanted to share those. I asked Cody if I could share a couple of them. We've had maybe 10 altogether, and I wish I could share all of them, but those were two that really stuck out. Isn't it amazing? Yeah. So that's part of our Total Rewards program. And so, you know, what a Total Rewards program does is it doesn't just pay now. It doesn't just pay the paycheck, but it does the future. Like I said, there's retirement benefits, 401k matches, life insurance, those kinds of things. I call it kind of that marriage policy in sickness and in health. So, you know, the health leave, the vacation, holiday, disability, all of those things. And then we also, part of the package is development. We have that tuition reimbursement that we improved last year, and we have in-house training, and then we have specialized training for, you know, all the respective departments. And, you know, we are working, Cody always says we want to be that employer of choice in Northern Colorado, and we are working toward that. And so that's the Total Rewards. The diagram on my right up there is a screenshot from ADP. That's our HRIS system. And so employees can log in at any time and see their Total Rewards package. They can see the full year for the previous year, or they can see anticipated earnings for the current year. And so in this particular screenshot, this was a former employee that just resigned. I took that screenshot from her. I thought it was safe. And this particular person's story is about her base wages plus all the benefits combined is about a 40% increase. So when we talk about Total Rewards, it is a huge part of what we pay, total pay for employees. Next, I want to talk about our labor market. Last year, we created, with your approval and the executive team, we created this labor market, and I wanted to share this screen as a reminder. Some of you folks weren't here last year, but I wanted to tell you how we arrived at this labor market. So in years past, we, up there in the blue where it says then, we compared to Employers Council. They have three different, they do things a little bit different now, but before they had three separate surveys, and they had Denver, Boulder, Northern Colorado, and All Front Range. Those are represented there in the yellow highlighted. And in that yellow highlight represents 100 cities in 14 counties. So the Pueblo County, El Paso County, and so that's what we used to compare to, and it didn't make a whole lot of sense to us, and so we narrowed our labor market. And so now we compare to those 13 entities there, and 12 cities in one county, Weld County, and they're represented in the blue circle, and Evans there is starred. And why did we choose this labor market? And it's because this is where our team lives. 13% live actually in Evans proper. 65%, these are updated for this year, by the way. 65% do live in our peer jurisdictions, and then 22% live still pretty much in the blue circle, but in other areas. So that brings you up to speed on our labor market. And then what do we do? How do we get our information, or how do we know we're at market? And so we do a comparative study. And so as you can see here, we've listed those 13 jurisdictions there. And this is a screenshot of a Planner One. We do not have an incumbent in Planner One, so I wanted to share that with you. And we go and we ask, either they from direct inquiry or from surveys, and we ask, let's just start at the top. We ask Brighton, what do you match to? And we compare job descriptions for Planner One. They title theirs Assistant City Planner, and then we take their min and their max and we put that in there. If they've provided their actual average, I put that there. So this is the actual average. If I don't have the actual average, I do the midpoint, and I highlighted that in green. And so then we go all the way down, and that's where we arrive at our market mean. Okay, so the minimum there and the max there, and then the market average. But the market reference point, that is the middle of everyone's min and everyone's max. That's the market reference point. And so you can see for this position, the market reference point is slightly higher than the average. And then I compare that to what we're paying here at the City of Evans, and the min and the max and the actual. Since we don't have an incumbent there, again, I took the midpoint of the range. Of course, if we had an incumbent, depending on their tenure, they could make anywhere within that range. And then we have formulas put in the bottom there that tell you your market value placement. And what this is telling us is that we are 2% higher than the minimum, we're 4% higher than the maximum, and if we had somebody that made exactly the midpoint, they would be, I can't really see it, is that 3%? Yeah, sorry, it looks all blurry to me. I should have brought my glasses. So the recommendation here is no change. This is a very hardy benchmark. We would not do anything with this one. We don't see any negatives. And even though it says 3% higher, it's really right there. And chances are our person wouldn't actually coming in the door wouldn't make the midpoint. So we did this exact process for 85 positions, which comprise, they also have 13 benchmarks. So that's how we got the data that we're going to share with you tonight. So that market reference point, if I take the aggregate, I had 131 regular employees. That's a head count. And so for all of those 131 positions all together, right now today, the market reference point is 11.6 million in the green there. If we compare to last year's market reference point, or excuse me, the current market reference point, we are 2% below. Okay, so both of those numbers are current, the green and the blue. We are 2% below market reference point. However, the recommendation we have to offer you tonight is that we're going to move everyone their step, or a merit increase. And so once we do that, we're going to be 1% above the current market reference point come January. I want to talk to you a little bit about that. So this year-over-year comparison, I want to provide that for you. And we do understand that other jurisdictions, they're doing the same thing that we're doing right now. So they are going to also be moving their pay plans or giving their employees step increases. So this is a snapshot of what it looks like right now. There's really no way to determine what it's going to look like, because we're not unsure of what increases everyone's going to be giving in 2025. I'm very proud to show this slide. I think the City of Evans has done an amazing job getting our people to be paid at market reference point. That's huge. When I came, I've been here 2.5 years. When I came, we had most of our workforce below 90%. So we've made great strides. Thank you for that. I want to move along to part of our analysis is also a benefit cost projection. And so this is, we haven't actually received these yet, but we asked and asked and asked our CEBT friends if they could provide that to us, and they have. They're actually coming next week to tell us about our increases, but this is what they're going to present next week. Dental is going up 12%, our premiums, and medical 5.5%. Let me back up to dental. Dental is on the high end of premium increases, but the medical, we're actually at the very lowest of that CEBT is seeing for organizations, the increase at 5.5%. So what that means is our dental and medical costs premiums are going up $87,000 for 2025. Of that $87,000, the city picks up, well, for some employees for high deductible health plan, they pick up 100% of the increase of all premiums. But for other plans, you know, it just depends if they're family, if they're on the PPO, those things. So it's all a little bit different. The employee portion of this increase that we would pass on to staff would be $11,030. That's the part that the employees would pick up. So it's a very small amount. We are prepared to recommend that the city actually pick the entire increase up, and so that the city would pick up that $87,000. And so when employees do get their step increases, they feel the full measure of that. They didn't get their step increase, and then it was reduced by medical costs increase. So we are going to propose that in just a little bit. Part of our analysis every year also is a SLARF process, and we do that for not only vehicles and projects, but we also do that for personnel. And so these are the SLARF requests that we received, just over $1 million. And I just wanted to walk through these quickly to let you know what came in. So
what is a SLARF?
SLARF is a service level analysis request.
Thank you.
And the F is for form. So it's a form that we use in a process. And so I do have our little bit, we got a request for 3 parks maintenance technicians, and you can see the first 3 there. They're kind of prioritized from, I guess, myself and Cody. I'll speak for myself. I prioritized them. You tell me if I got them out of order. But this is not the order they came in. I just know that beautification of our parks is a very high priority. And so just to speak a little bit from the SLARF request, the current staffing level is insufficient to meet the current and growing expectations of care. And if we added 3 staff members, that would be equivalent to perhaps like an additional crew. That $210 would be offset by some savings that would hit the general fund. Savings on seasonal staff, contract services, and some contract services that are actually in the facility budget. So Ty Hamer's estimate would be approximately $100,000 less than that with the budget savings in other areas. So that one's the parks. And then facility technician. So the city of Evans has a facility maintenance manager. We have 1 person that does all of that. You probably met him, Hector Rico. He's, I call him Mr. HR, Hector Rico. Anyway, he's amazing. If you just looked at our building and grounds, it's just, the city doesn't even look the same as it did before he got here. He's responsible for all work orders, vendor management, budgeting, financial management, strategic planning, contracts, service agreements, everything. And so this year alone, we would have saved in a half a year, just what we paid so far, half of that $70,000, $33,000. And so it kind of feels like it would be budget neutral. We wouldn't have to contract as much if we had this facility technician. And then, you know, when I say that we would, the contract savings Like, for instance, Hector hired some crew to paint the ballast out back. They were painting today. Well, they're coming just for that. But if we had a facility technician, they would be here every day, you know, helping out every day. So that's one of the SLARF requests that came in. We also had code enforcement to facilitate the growth and continued beautification of the city of Evans. And we know that the city is growing, and we just want to improve our level of service with code enforcement. And we know that we're going to be perhaps annexing some additional areas that are going to need to have more code enforcement assistance in those areas. We did receive a SLARF for a customer service administrator, and you can see that I've crossed that out, and that's because we were creative. Every time we had a vacancy at the city, and every time that we have a vacancy, we evaluate and make a decision, you know, do we need to have this position, or can we, you know, what's the best way that these dollars could add value to the city. And so this position, the vacancy that we had, we actually turned that into a customer service administrator position, and we were able to take the duties that were through the vacancy and to spread those out among existing staff. And so we were able to absorb that and to save the city, kind of repurpose that FTE to meet a greater need here at the city. The next two positions, you can see the asterisk there because these are not from the general fund, but from enterprise funds. And these were submitted by Ty Boreski. And it says, we are currently very understaffed in water. There is a backlog of shutoffs, years of neglected maintenance, and limited checks of ditches that could lead to failure of service interruptions. This would increase our capacity to perform the minimum required task, both service, maintenance, and emergency items. GIS analysts, this has come up every year since I've worked here. We currently have one GIS employee, and you heard her Exceptionally Evans nomination. This came in from Chris Bragg, IT Director, and it says, due to projected city growth as well as increased GIS usage and expectations organization-wide, there is consequently a need to increase and improve GIS services and support capabilities throughout the organization to accommodate this anticipated growth, change, and continued reliance on GIS information. And I just wanted to share with you an example. I work very closely with Windsor. They're part of our labor market. And I asked them, tell me about your GIS team. And they have actually 4 dedicated GIS employees. They have a supervisor, 2 analysts, and an intern that every semester they get a new intern that they pay. And so that, you know, we have 1 and they have 4. So you can see why that request came in. The next one was my request. I already have Human Resources and Risk Management. I have a 0.5 emergency management coordinator that is currently vacant. And so our hope was to ask for another 0.5, making a 40-hour employee that would do not only emergency management, but ADA compliance and then safety and risk employee development. And we've actually had some retention challenges with that position being half-time, and we thought a full-time position might help. But that was that request, and it's where it should be up there. We are going to be just fine without it. And then the following 2, we had discussions about bringing our the possibility of providing building permitting and inspection services, bringing that in-house. And Tammy's shaking her head, yeah, in-house rather than a contractor. And you know, there's pros and cons with the contractor. We thought with the departure of our community development director, and that maybe we should kind of put this on hold and reconsider this for the future, and that honestly we have more pressing needs, and that's why these 2 fell toward the bottom of the list. So those were the SLARF requests that came in.
I mean, what are we currently approximately paying the contracted building inspector?
It's a percentage of the building permit fees that come in, so it varies each year depending on that level of activity. But we're in the $300,000 to $400,000 to $500,000 range, depending on what year and how much activity we have going.
Ideally, we would like to have this in-house. We just don't think this is the right year to push it forward. Comfortable in saying that?
Can I interject on that?
Sure.
So I agree that we're gonna need a building inspector. I've known, and I know other council members have heard and feel that's a lot of complaints about the contractor that we use now, for various reasons. But I think for us to bring in one that will actually follow the Evans Code and actually work with our community and our, I think would be a great, asset to Evans. So I would be in favor of, I know we can't afford it for probably this year, but maybe, in 26, that we'd be able to bring somebody on, but I think that'd be a good idea.
Hey, Mark, can we circle back to this conversation when they're done with the presentation? And we'll have a
Yeah.
little bit more lengthy discussion on each one of these, I think would be a great thing.
Sure.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I just want to point one thing out, just because I want to make sure. So the original stuff that's still posted online has that customer service administrator not crossed out,
Okay.
but it has the same total. So we're actually saving 9% off of that 1 point.
Yep, the 90,000 is a savings. I wanted to show, Cody and I discussed this, I think, late Friday, and I wanted to show that this was what came in, but we no longer have to consider the customer service administrator. Good call, Chris.
So let's, if you have like, any kind of questions, clarification, please feel free to ask. And then after we're done with this, let's talk about this.
Yep, I agree, Luke. I agree.
All right. So in order to talk about these personnel requests, I thought it would be best to kind of show you our staffing numbers. And so I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this slide because in order for you to get the whole picture. So we're going to go from my left but to right. And so we're going to start with the city managers. I believe that's, city manager. I need my glasses. City manager. So there's 6 employees that work what we call the city manager's office. That's the department that they're paid out of. And so we have Cody, and we also have our assistant to the city manager, Curtis. And then we have a city attorney, and we have 2 in communications and 2 in our city clerk's office. City clerk and deputy city clerk. Okay, 9, total 6. And then community development, and that would include the department head. We have 1 person in planning, we have 1 person in the building division, and we have 3 in code enforcement. That includes the neighborhood services manager. Economic development, even though it says 2, this is head count. We actually have 1.5. And Brian Stone, and then his half-time economic development specialist, Kara Roberts? Yeah, okay. And then finance. Jackie has a lot going on in her department. She has actually 5, it's 5 in her head count. She has 2 that work part-time that work in accounting or in finance. She has 2 in municipal court, and she actually has 4 in utility billing. And that makes up the finance department. Human resources risk management, my department, we have 2 that work in human resources. We have 1.5 that work in risk management, and myself. IT, we have 2, we have the department head, Chris, and then we have 2 that work actually in IT, the soft side and the hard side, and then we have the 1 GIS employee. In PD, currently we have 49, 40 in our sworn staff and 9 in civilian support. That includes property and evidence, records, digital evidence. Those are the 9 civilian. In Parks and Rec, we have 8 that work in our Parks Department. We have 3 full-time employees that work in Recreation. The number there in red, the 24, those are part-time staff. So that's our front desk, day camp, concessions, rentals, scorekeepers, officials, instructors. And then the green is seasonal, and we have currently 6 seasonals that help with our mowing. Then also comprised in our Parks and Recreation Department is our facilities team, which is comprised of 4 team members, 1 facilities maintenance manager that I already told you about, and then we have 3 custodians to take care of our whole building here, and plus some of our other areas. And then Public Works and Utilities. We have 15 team members that are divided in our ops department, our ops division. That's comprised of streets, stormwater, water, fleet, and our sign shop. So 15 employees do all of that. And then wastewater, we have 9. In engineering, we have 6 employees that are comprised of our construction inspection, water conservation, utility locates, and our water resources. So that's the breakout of our team members. So when we are asking for the parks workers and the facility tech, code enforcement, community or customer service administrator, you can kind of see why. Part of our analysis is also to look at our pay plans, and so we call this our wage structure construction. These are our 3 pay plans that were adopted and approved last year, and they're the same pay plans that we are recommending to move forward for 2025 with 0 changes to our actual pay plans. Again, you can see how our market reference point was held steady with no changes to our pay plans. The only change that we might have is to our non-benefited pay plan. That's our part-time, and that's just going to be dependent on Colorado minimum wage. Our minimum here is $15, and of course, if it goes over 15, we'll have to make that adjustment. So now we're going to move over to the budget, and here on the left, the total pay. So in 2024, this is just pay, base pay, not benefits. This is just base pay for staff, and that's $11,700,000. For 2025, with everybody getting their step increase, that's going to bring our pay up to $12,100. That increase is $386,000. What we get for that $386,000, $610 is the bullet points that you see on the right. That includes pay for city council, interns, and staff, current pay for those. All regular employees would get their step and merit increase, okay? Which equates to a 4% average increase citywide, which I think is marvelous. We have taken into consideration for minimum wage. So that's a bucket, and we've increased that just to be on the safe side. We've taken that into consideration. What it does not include is any new positions, those SLARFs or any other positions that we want to consider. And it does not include adjustment to council pay that we're going to discuss in just a little bit. So I'm going to turn it over to Jackie for the next 2 slides.
So now that Tammy's painted a picture citywide of what we're trying to do, where we're trying to go, I see a couple people trying to calculate. Hold on. When we look at that, about 88% of that total cost, that $12.1 million that Tammy mentioned, does go to our general fund. So this is employees that were directly coded to one of these various funds. If you're a wastewater employee, you're in the wastewater bucket. Even though we know that many of the general fund employees do service all of the enterprise funds, we do an overhead allocation calculation. Those funds are also paying back to the general fund. It's something I spent the morning working on. You know, we look and ask for all the departments to look at their employees and allocate what percentage of time they are devoting to the various functions in those enterprise funds. We allocate a similar percentage of our supplies and services costs that might be citywide costs. Our financial audit, for instance, that benefits all funds, all accounts in the city. And so we do sprinkle that cost out so that everybody's paying for the cost of that particular function. So generally speaking, where employees are housed is shown in this chart here. So 88% of that $12.1 million is related to general fund operations. You'll see there's a 0% in there just for rounding purposes. We do also have 2 allocations of utility inspector and construction engineer folks that are allocated to our road tax fund to help manage and monitor some of those road projects. That is an allowable use of that fund. So it's there, there's a very small amount, but it wasn't large enough in comparison to show a percentage. And then total personnel costs there, you'll see if you're looking closely, it's a little small, I apologize, almost $8 million is the 2025 total personnel costs. And as Tammy mentioned, this is our direct and indirect costs. This is our total rewards then that does bring in the cost of the wellness incentive, our payroll taxes, all of the benefits, our 401k, all of those awesome things that were in her exciting chart shown in red that do have a dollar value to them. And when you compare 2025's cost at almost $8 million to where we're at currently is 15.3, we have a 3% overall increase year over year, citywide personnel costs. So I echo Tammy's excitement when we're able to accomplish all of those great number of things on the previous slide for what ends up being a 3% overall cost to the city. And I really appreciated the breakdown of number of employees by department and division. I think we learned of this communication opportunity at one of our finance committee conversations where we were talking about various operations and realizing that maybe this was a level of detail we hadn't shared with council. You know, we talk about certain operations or certain employees, you know, a few of us, but really to understand the operations, I think paints a really neat picture for where we're allocating our resources. And so this is the dollar amount that ties to the number of people that Tammy showed on a previous slide in those same order. And you'll see, as you expect, police being the largest department, the number of FTEs here at the city being also the largest cost. So over almost $6.2 million of our $15 million cost of the city is going to our police. So we're continuing to, just like every other department, make sure that we're allocating the proper resources to these departments, and this is a costly one. Public Works and Utilities there on the right, about $3.3 million to run our parks, facilities, and recreation department, $1.8 million. So it's pretty eye-opening, I thought, when we looked at the dollar amounts. We have a couple others that are over $1 million. So we continue to show that we're placing value, the highest value of our city resources to our employees. They are our most valuable resource. We say that as much as we can. And part of why we're doing this conversation now, I don't know that we've ever had a personnel conversation in budget in August, let alone the first meeting in August. So to Tammy and her team's credit, being able to have this information in the comp and class data already ready and all the work that they've done to provide this really helps to set up our budget. Instead of personnel being one of the last things that we're trying to squeeze in to figure out how do we pay for it and how do we still retain good employees, this is something we get to do now, have a conversation with council and figure out how we retain and continue to attract good employees and make our personnel the priority is we're assigning dollar amounts to. So turn it back to Tammy.
The last thing that I wanted to share with you, I was asked by council to provide a study on council compensation. And as in years past, we looked at Weld County, a Weld County comparison. And so for those Weld County cities that were above 5,000 in population but below 35,000, they're listed here. And their population and the amount of compensation that their mayor and their council members receive. And then about middle of the screen, there's the monthly, the average monthly compensation, and then also the median monthly compensation there. And as a comparison, Evans is listed, and then Greeley doesn't meet that criteria, but I provided that for you. So that would be something that I would defer back to council for discussion and for determination. And so at this point, we are going to move to discussion about these items, and I think that we should maybe start from the top and ask for council's feedback or recommendation for providing step increases for all staff.
So, since we have Mark online, I would really like to open him up first to see if he has anything to say, because he can't interact with us in person. So let's see if Mark has anything, and then we'll go through and discuss it. I think it's great that we just kind of do it one subject at a time, and we hopefully can get this discussion done in the next half hour. I know I have a lot of notes, and I think some other people have some notes. So, Mark, what do you have?
All right, thanks, Laura. Appreciate it. Well, greetings from Fort Worth, Texas. Sorry I can't be there in person. Got a last-minute work trip to send me out of town. But for providing step increases for all staff, I'm definitely in favor of this. Our city staff are the most valuable employees that we have that provide great services to our entire community. As we know, other communities are looking at, comp studies, classification studies, and there's a lot of municipalities out there that are trying to be competitive, and we need to remain as competitive as we can be to retain our great employees. So I'm definitely in favor of providing the merit increase, step increases for all staff. As far as the city pay for the 100% medical and dental premium increases,
Hey,
I
Mark,
can tell you,
let's do one at a time.
Okay,
Is that what
go ahead.
it's
Where you want to do it, yeah.
Perfect. Sounds good.
let's see, city pay. Okay. Yeah, let's do one at a time so we can get everything organized here.
Okay.
So you're in favor of that? Anybody else have any comments or opinions on this? You're in favor of it? Okay. Because I know that we did this last year, so I mean, of course, I have a few questions. We increased this last year to the 100%, and so hoping that we had more retention. Did that affect the retention?
I would say it's one of the aspects. I mean, there's all kinds of mitigating factors about retention, but we have very little vacancy at this point. We're fully staffed in PD. We're, what do we have? Maybe like 3 open positions, just a couple. So I would say early signs are it is affecting retention.
Because I think one of the ones that was a point of the retention issue was the fact that we couldn't hire people to do the groundskeeping or public works. That they were having trouble. So it seems like, and maybe Cody knows more, but it seems like that may have been cured from last year, and that we might be able to retain these people if we have an increase this year.
I agree, Laura, that we did for those entry-level wage earners, we brought the bottom up more than 10%. And so I do believe that has had a positive impact on our hiring. We just, the ask there is not so much the pay, but the number of personnel in our Parks Department, yeah.
And this pay increase is not across the board. It is where it's needed, and people may not qualify for the 5%. It's more of the entry level in certain positions.
So the step increase is what, according to our policy, we're calling merit. It's a step increase. It's based on merit. It is not an across the board. Our pay plans, that's why I showed you the 3 pay plans. We are not recommending that the pay plans move this year. Just that the step increase.
And I'm just asking the questions because, I'm sure we'll have some comments from some citizens saying, well, we just gave everybody a raise, but that is a total different subject. And so people who actually do a good job and and have a good evaluation will be getting their raises, but this is not a 5% across the board. It's just an adjustment to our pay range.
4%.
So again,
Average of 4. Average of 4. So the police, all police officers are already on a step plan. So year over year, they get their step. Last year, the city adopted a step plan for all team members. And so regular staff will receive their step or merit increase based on passing their performance evaluation. If they're not meeting expectations, they will be placed on a performance improvement plan, and they'll have 6 months per policy to right that ship.
So thank you for summarizing that, and I am for it too. So if we're all in agreement,
I'm for it. I'm for it. I think with everything increasing, I mean, and it's important to have, livable wages and ensure that we retain our employees and keep them happy, and then ensure that this is a great place to be.
I disagree. 4%'s a little too high. GDP is at 2.8%. I think 3% should be the max. Money's tight as it is in the general fund. I think that those who are performing at the absolute highest should, without a doubt, get to that 3%. But pushing above the overall market performance, I mean, your data shows that low, medium, and high, 3% is exactly where we should be. I would like to see a 3% figure. It's in alignment with GDP, and that's over the last 6 quarters. So,
what was your percentage? I'm good.
3%,
3%.
3% max.
So is anybody have any comments?
The only thing I'd comment on that is we're still technically 2% under the marker or the MRP right now. So this is yet another adjustment to try to finely tune us to where we are actually at the market level, which to me means that it's not a cost of living adjustment. So GDP doesn't really play into it. I understand what you're saying about GDP being 2.9%, but this isn't a COLA. This is a step increase to try to get us aligned with the market. And the only figure in this that I wasn't sure I agreed with is the fact that we'd be at greater than 1% MRP because, and you said it at the very end, we don't know what all the other cities are going to do. So if they do 3% and we do 3%, we're still going to be 2% below the market average.
Okay, I accept that. I accept
I
that.
agree with that.
I concur.
So, and again, this is sustainable with our current budget.
Is it?
It's built into our 5-year plan. So when we adopted this step plan model last year, we ensured that we had sufficient funds in that 5-year timeframe to do that. We do still have that. We had enough. I think what we had initially budgeted was 4.5% in this year to hopefully cover medical increases and the step plan and ensure that we had enough money to do that. So when Elsa and I reconciled with HR these numbers, we did have enough, and that's why we did support the recommendation to also pay for the health insurance increase.
So
Which is our next subject.
pay for, yeah, I know. So pay for it in full plus 4%.
Yes, that's already been built into the budget in these outgoing years. We may still have hard conversations on adding anything when it comes to supplies and services and capital, those sorts of things. The budget isn't fully done yet, but yes, for the payroll budget component, that was what we had forecasted in the future years.
So I'll start it. Is there any more conversation regarding that?
I just think that speculation is an interesting economic approach. I think 3% would bring us over the MRP if no one else does anything. And with today's economic concerns, 3% is still a plus. And it's a viable response. So I'm going to stick with 3%.
Anybody else have anything? So now I'm going to go around. Mark, are you at 4% or 3%?
I'm at the 4.
Okay. Chris?
4.
Jeff is at 3. Tammy?
4.
4. Fred?
I go with the 3.
You're going with 3? Yep. And I'm just always concerned about our finances, so I would agree with the 3. But it looks like it's 3 to 4, so I think the 4 is, unless somebody wants to reconsider. Nope. I'm getting far away looks, so I guess you're good with 4, and we'll hope for the best.
Okay.
Okay. So now,
Great.
now we can go on to the city to pay 100% of the medical dental premium increases. Mark, do you have anything to say about this?
Yes. So as a former employee of another municipality several years ago. One of the things that was really grateful by the employees was that the city at that time covered the medical and dental premiums for employees. There used to be talk about passing on some of the cost increases to the employees. And some of the concerns were brought up that, you know, any merit or step increase that you may have received would be offset because you're now paying more in your premiums if you were to pick up the medical and dental cost. It's not a huge increase that is being passed on to the city. What was it, $87,000, I believe, if I remember from that slide correctly. That's actually not too bad considering that it's a 12% dental and a 5.5% of the medical side. That's actually really good. The city was able to get that type of increase where I know other municipalities are facing a lot more higher cost and they are looking at passing it on to their employees. I think this is something that the city should be able to absorb. Now, if it was much higher of a percentage, I think we'd be having a different conversation. But I think this is something that the employees value. It makes them feel worth. And it also, you know, ensures that we want to make sure that their health and welfare is taken care of. So I think for this year, it's something that we can look at in absorbing. And then if the cost significantly increase, say in the future, then we might have to reconsider something at that time. But I think this $87,000 is not a big thing for the city to absorb for the employees.
So I guess I'll step in right after that. Thank you, Mark. And say that I kind of feel I have mixed emotions. I hear what Mark says. I understand where the staff is going with this, but I kind of feel like maybe it should be a split between the cities helping with the responsibility and then the employee having an increase in that too. It's just everything's going up, and sadly, we all are paying more for everything. I just think that there should maybe not be the whole entire burden on the city, but I am willing to listen to what everybody else has to say. If we want to go around the table, if there's anything.
Can I clarify?
Yes.
That $87,000, the city automatically is going to pay $76,000 of that. The $11,000 would be passed on to team members, and that's what we're asking not to be passed on. So we're really talking about $11,030.
That was my initial understanding,
Mine
but
too.
then after talking, listening to the mayor, then I misunderstood that. So,
My
so
math
we're,
is $11 per employee
yeah,
per month.
yeah. So that for me puts in a different perspective. But anybody else have comments and questions, or how does everyone else feel?
I have mixed emotions on, if my math's right, and it might not be, but it's $11 per month per employee. So I'm a little bit indifferent with that. The problem with that is our mill levy is so low that is a big chunk of our money gone. But for employee retention, paying $11, I would be okay with that, or even splitting that. I mean, or
Well,
not,
you can't split the 11. We would have to cover the 76 if I'm.
but we already are, but
Oh, we
that's
already
splitting the
covered that.
11,300 with the
Splitting the
employees.
Gotcha.
And we're already gonna give them 4%, so then have them take the $11.
Yep. I see what you're saying.
So let me explain a little bit more. So all employees, I mean, there's several different pay insurance plans. So they could be on PPO, they could be on Kaiser, they could be on the high deductible, they could be single employee, employee and child, employee and family. So the savings or the costs are different per
Of course.
employee.
But the
So
aggregate,
some employees will see no increase.
and some will see a
And some will
large.
have if they have a PPO and a family, they'll see the biggest increase. And that's why we want to recommend that all employees get the full merit and that the city pick up the full cost of the increase.
We also offer HSA accounts,
Yes, we do.
so they can offset those high deductible premiums through their own pre-tax dollars.
They can.
And with giving that 4%, I think that I would defer away from paying that additional fee, but I'm also indifferent about it. I'd like to see what the rest of you guys think about it.
Yeah, she just talked me out of it.
I'll see.
Sorry.
That just solidified me a little bit more, but I mean, it's the statistical average. The overall health of our employees is very important. And so what's the opportunity costs of us not pitching it a little bit more? But those that are spending $200 or $300 a month, that's a significant increase. But those who are younger and are taking advantage of the HSA accounts, they won't see anything. So,
Well, so the one thing I want to say is we just very dividedly landed on paying people more. So they're going to see that go in, but they wouldn't have seen it if we didn't appropriate that, agree to that. Now what we're doing is the exact opposite. If we don't do this, then they're going to see on their check, oh, I'm getting charged more.
oh yeah.
So to me, it kind of counteracts what we just did. Because now you're gonna have people seeing, oh, wait, but you gave me, a 4% increase, which 4% might be $25 a month. But then you took away $11 of that.
So your approach is give them both and both?
Yeah.
Okay.
You still up $14. Tammy, Ally,
I was
Ed looks like he wants to say something.
a little split on it myself. I don't know, I'll be honest. I just know with my job, I pay for all the increases, and while I understand the benefits and I'm not saying the employees don't deserve it. They work hard but I don't know, everywhere else we have to pay for it. It's a tough one because I don't know. I want to say yes, but at the same time, I want to say no.
But I'm also taking this as a statistical average, like only some will benefit
Right,
more than others.
right.
The 4% will benefit everyone if they all perform within the function of their duties and roles. This is now potentially segregating the approach to the healthcare system.
Right.
So, am I incorrect with that?
I don't know if I'd use segregate, but depending on
So,
on the choice
yeah.
that they, on the plan that they choose. Yeah, so you're right, there will be a better benefit depending on the plan that they're on.
So Ally or Fred? Fred? He's,
Well, I'm in favor of a one-time payment, with the understanding that passed on to the employees that the city may not be able to maintain this in perpetuity, that there are gonna have to be some cost sharing on the increases probably in the future. And, I'm
It's a good
officially
point.
retired, I still have to pay the increases on some of this stuff too.
I just want to clarify as well, for all of our plans except for the high deductible single employee, employees do have a portion. They do pay upwards of 26%, 20-some percent on the PPO family. It's like 73 and, it would be 27%. So they do pay their portion.
Ally?
I am for paying the 11,000. I think, I hear everyone's perspective and, it's, yes, I agree with everyone's perspective, but at the same time, I feel as though with anything, especially when it comes to having, we can go down the rabbit hole. Yes for it.
So is there any more discussion?
Can I just say something?
Go ahead. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
Mark?
So I want to say this is kind of a good thing and a bad thing of a problem to have. This just shows that, we as a council are definitely interested in making sure that our employees are taken care of, not only financially, but also their health and wellness is taken care of as well. I know, this is where the money comes in. And as to Jeff's point, this is where we definitely need to have a discussion about the mill levy to help bring in some more money, because we're eventually going to get into a budget deficit where we're not going to have the money to offset some of these costs or help our staff and employees with any merit increases or possibly health care increase premiums that the city could cover. But I think, as Chris pointed out earlier, that we just authorized a 4% merit increase. And I know it will affect somebody. Some people will pay more, some people will pay less. But I think if we started splitting the cost now, that 4% becomes maybe 3% or 2%, they might see of an increase once you balance it out. I think if the premiums were higher and it was a lot more of a cost than about $11,000, this would be a just different discussion.
So Chris, you had one more thing?
That was exactly what I was gonna say. I
Wow.
was just gonna restate kind of what, Councilmember Neal was saying in just a different way. Right now, we're being told we can't afford this. That doesn't mean next year we can't afford this. And so for me, since we're in the position that we can't afford it, this is when we do it.
Right.
And then when we can't afford it, we have the legitimacy to go back and say, hey, when we had the opportunity, we did. Now we don't have the opportunity and we need you to work with us.
Well said.
Point.
Yes.
So it looks like that's a yes.
Okay.
All right, so now something that's been on a few of our minds for maybe 8 years. The adjustment to the city council and mayor pay. Mr. Mayor, is there anything you would like to say in public?
Sure, absolutely. So, as I stated before, I'm taking me personally out of this because personally, to me, I'm not doing this for the money. This is something that I love to do. I love serving our community. So for me, it's not about pay. What I'm looking at is for people in future councils. A lot of people are enticed by payment, whether they're wanting to be a public servant, whatever job they do in public service, whether it's council, mayor, city employee, military, whatever. They enjoy public service. And some of them, it's not about pay, but some of it is. And I think for all the time and effort that we put into council, not only for council meetings, but outside of council meetings, to a lot of people, time is money. And they want to be valued for the extra time that they put in outside of normal council meetings. And I'm thinking, I'm not looking at making a huge increase, but I was thinking, I've had these conversations with Tammy Thompson when we were talking about budget, that $450 a month for council member and $600 to $650 a month for mayor, I think is not a huge increase, but I think it might entice people to get more active in the community. Like I said, I'm not doing it for the money. To me, that's not a big deal, but I'm taking myself out of the equation and looking for future councils that say money does and time value is to them. So I would be in favor of increasing it a little bit for future councils.
So thank you. I'll start with this too. Because I think since 2003, we haven't done an increase. I hear often from people that they were interested and then they think that we're going to get paid or they're going to get paid or we're getting paid what Denver's getting paid. And when they find out it's $300, they don't even want to, participate in the audience. So I agree, but I think it should be 600 and 400. However, I'm wondering, did we have to put this out to the voters?
I don't believe so. It's charter. Yeah, it's charter.
Okay, all right. So we don't have to put it out to the voters? Awesome. Yeah, so I'm for 600 for the mayor and 400 for the council members. And I have to tell you, and I think Mr. Neal here does the same thing. I'm not reliant on this money. I use it for some charity work and to just kind of supplement what I spend going to places for council. And so it's not important to me. And by the way, you all know this is my last term anyway, so it doesn't matter to me. I'm looking forward to the future. And I think that it's very important so that the council members can have a fair compensation. So I'm for it. and I'm willing to listen to what everybody else has to say. Anybody?
Well, I would add one other thing. I'm blessed to work at a company that works with me so that I can do this, but I'm having to adjust my schedule during the day in order to participate in council. And like I said, for me, that's easy because I have a company that will work with me. But it does create an opportunity cost that I'm losing and not getting compensated for it. Now, would I still do it and would I still be able to do it because of my company? Absolutely. But that's not everybody out there who may want to do this and may have good opinions and may have great ideas for the city.
Well, and a good point. That's a good point because since I'm a farm owner, when I go places for the city, for example, the water tour that we went on, I have to pay somebody to take care of my property or my husband has to take time off. So for me, this is a little bit, it's not all charity. My husband probably appreciates getting paid too. So anyways, but I see your point. So.
And PTO. If you don't, because I took PTO, I'm gonna take PTO for the next water.
Right, so, anybody else have anything to say? Are you guys for it?
I'm for it.
I'm for it, and I'm good with this 600, 400.
I'd like to see 700, 500. That puts us into an aggregate average.
Go ahead, get back to that. What do you have to say?
Well, I've always looked back at the founding fathers and the things that they went through to be a public servant, and they weren't in it for the money. And I'm donating the full $300 a month and then some. So I can see a little bit of other things, but I feel that if you want to be on city council, you should be here to serve and not make money. The increases that you're talking about aren't that great. And I was shocked when the first paperwork from other municipalities to find out that they were making $300. City council members were only making $300 a month, and I believe it was Greeley and some of the surrounding communities. So
Greeley's way more.
yeah, well,
Greeley's like $1,000 a month
1,050.
and 15.
okay, well, there were several communities where they were making the same amount of money as what we were making. So
Smaller than us,
but
so,
but it's slowly starting to ramp up, I guess. So.
right. All right, well, so you're against it. Ally, do you have anything that you'd like to add? What price?
Yes, like
or-
for me, I am also against it just because right now, I think what collectively yearly, it's like 26,700. I think right now is probably not the best time. I think we can use any increase for other things. I'm exactly as Councilmember Neal mentioned, for me, it wasn't about coming, I didn't even know that you got paid. I was here because I'm a public servant. I wanted to serve, my city and be a part of it and in essence, donate my time. It's like in anything that you do, if you're a part of it, you're donating your time. And so in essence, that was kind of my stance. Granted, I do hear what was said. I think if we were to do this, right now it's not the best time. I think it'd be at a later time. I'm not sure if we want to earmark this for a specific year. Considering that we also want to increase the mill levy, that we're concerned, I think right now this conversation shouldn't be had. It's like, hey, we need money, but let's give ourselves increases. It doesn't look right to me. So I'm against it.
Tammy,
So I also didn't know we got paid when I got on council. But like Laura said and Chris said, we have to take days off work or time off work. Like this Friday at 4:00, if I'm able to leave work and make it, that would mean I'm not giving a full day to my job, and I need that job to survive. And granted, 300's not gonna cover it, but if you think about it too, if we're using paid time off or paying someone else to do our job, we're not really getting ahead. And like my paid time off, they don't differentiate between sick time and vacation time. What you get is what you get. And while I understand the no's 100%, I don't think $100 extra is gonna hurt the city that much, and I'm not saying it for myself, not at all, because I'll be honest with you, I don't see most of mine because of other situations. So it's just, for me, I don't mind what I do. I love what I do. And I love being able to go out and do these things and see the things that we get to see. But, it is eating into a personal time paycheck thing for me.
Mr. Neal here says things all the time about, this is the youngest, city council that we've had. Well, with the youngest city council comes the responsibility of other jobs. It used to be that civil service was something you did when you were retired. And so I think that some kind of compensation is good. So let's go around and see. So, because we only have like maybe 10 more minutes and
I just would like
15
to
more
add-
minutes.
I'd like to address one more thing.
Okay, sure.
So when you want to retain quality, you pay for quality. So we had to raise the price of the city manager to make sure that we obtained a city manager that would function to the level of expectations that we want. By undercutting the compensation for council, now you're undercutting the entire system, because now anyone that's inadequate that can do the job will just fill in a seat. And my opportunity costs are very high. And I did not know this was a paid position, but I do spend a great deal of time on this where I could be using my time elsewhere doing other things. Now, I thoroughly enjoy this role, and I thoroughly enjoy the opportunity of doing this, and I plan on doing this for several years in the future. But time value money, I do have to put into question when there's a lot of pushback of what I'm doing. Is my time being spent appropriately for the compensation that I'm being given? I'm not asking for $1,000. $500 a month is more than enough to offset my time and allow me to put in the 30 and 40 hours a week or a month that I need to do this job at 100%. Or we might not be able to retain better skilled, younger, enthusiastic council people to help lead the organization into success. We are the board of directors, and we do this because we care for what we do, but the opportunity costs are there. And I don't have to deal with PTO, but if I did, I would second guess this several times. So.
And I don't disagree with you. It's just, I think at this moment, it's not the time for it, considering other aspects of it, of what we have going on. I don't think it just doesn't seem appropriate. It's like stating, hey, let me give myself a raise when we're having hardships in other areas. That is just my perspective. Granted, when we do come in and we state that we want to be a part of this board, we do say, what the number one question that's always asked, even when someone's appointed, do you have the time for this? And then you state, yes, I do. We don't, and it's now if we get into like the nitty gritty of things and say, oh, well, now I have to take time off. I mean, that is a part of it. We go in knowing that. We come in knowing that we're volunteering and that we're going to provide our time. Again, we're donating time. This is not, in essence, like the typical job where you're paying wages. It's you're providing your service and your expertise, your knowledge, all of that to the city because you care about it. But again, as I mentioned, I'm not stating don't do it. I'm just saying right now is not the time.
So I have a follow-on to that. So as you know, a lot of us on council are blessed to be able to not worry about the compensation that we get on council. And some of us didn't know that you got compensated for being on council. And we're fortunate and we're blessed to be in that position, but not everybody is. That might want to look at possibly serving on council or serving in the city in any various capacity. And to your point, Ally, I don't disagree with you. I actually agree with everything you just said. But we've also looked at this several times over the past, 5 to 6 years? And we've always said, now's not the time, let's come back to it. Now's not the time, let's come back to it. When is the time? And I think as we eventually, our time on council, eventually sunsets and we move on, we have to look at the future and those people who are eventually going to sit on council. Their time is money. They value, as Jeff said earlier, they want to be compensated for the time they spend on council. And if they're doing it for $300-400 a month, to them, it's not worth their time. And I know we do it for different reasons. I get that, but we're different and not everybody's in that same position that we are, and blessed to be able to do that.
Right, did you have something, one more to say?
Well, and I do know that I've met at least and talked with one former city council member, and they actually needed that $300 a month to live on. And I thought that was pretty sad, and maybe I think they were dedicated to the position. So and since it will not affect anybody here currently on council, it will possibly affect whoever takes your place, Laura and Ally, I think this time around. Because you're both term limited, if I believe. So it would only, the increased compensation would only be for 2 positions,
Well, 3,
potentially.
4.
3, 4.
The mayor is the mayor, when we have elections this fall, everybody, next year. This is the 2025, so it won't. All right. So let's just go through. Mark, you're for it, and what price?
I'm actually good with the 600, 400.
Okay,
I go for 700, 500.
Chris?
I go for it either way.
I'm sorry?
I go for either way.
Okay. Tammy?
Same. I go for it, either one, 6-4 or 5-7.
And you're not, and you're not?
I'll go for the 6-4.
6-4, okay, sounds like 6-4. So we've got less than 10 minutes left. When is this going to be, do we have another time to discuss this in a work session?
Yeah.
Or do we think that we could hash through this in less than 10 minutes?
What I was going to say, do you want me to speak? No, go ahead.
My recommendation would be to push the last one off to the next work session.
Okay.
I think it's gonna be longer than 10 minutes.
I think so too. I've got a list of questions.
Fair.
Okay,
I have a bunch of questions too, so I agree.
all right, good. Well, then we'll discuss it when Mark's here in person. And if you have nothing else to add, we'll take a little break and then be back here at 7 o'clock